الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا والنساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and saying the peace and blessings upon our beloved messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on this blessed day of Yawm al-Jum'ah, that Allah Jalaluhu has seen fit to allow us to meet And may He allow us to meet the next one. And those to come after that. I mean, this blessed day of Yom Jum'ah, like every other Jum'ah, and we say it over and over and over, this is a time of reminding ourselves, or getting reminded. It is something that we're well aware of. Well aware of. But sometimes the scholars, they come and they put things in an order that aids us in understanding something that we already knew. Allahu Akbar. So with that, Yaqwa, the khutbah is designed around telling us, including myself first, not to worry where it causes you to fall into depression. This is what we call ghulub. Ghulub. This is that exaggerated worry. And the Muslim is not becoming of the believer when he knows and understands certain principles. When we know and understand certain principles, it's not becoming of the Muslim to over worry. We're not saying that you can't worry. Well, like everybody is adi, it's normal to become worried about something. But to overdo it, where a person becomes depressed and the like, it's overdone. We have the hadith collected by Tirmidhi, where Ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ أُمَّةً لَوْ اجْتَمَعَتْ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَنْفَعُوكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَمْ يَنْفَعُوكَ إِلَّا بِشَيْءٍ قَدْ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ لَكَ. Here, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and know, understand, understand that if the whole ummah was to come together to aid you, if all of mankind was to come together to help you, they wouldn't be able to help you except for that which Allah Azza wa Jal has written for you to be helped. So what are you worried for? You see, whatever it is that you are supposed to get, you're going to get it. It's coming to you. Now, no matter how hard you work, it's already written how long you're going to live. So you're going to work every day with the mindset that I have to go to work. You have to go. It's part of that which what was written. But the reality is your risk, now your provisions has already been written for you. And what other good that you're going after, it makes sense to be a little worried. Like on the days you have to work, you become sick. So you become worried that you may not make it. So what do as a preventive measure? You take medicine as a means of keeping yourself well. Well, hey, that's good. And you ask Allah to keep me healthy, to keep me strong, so that I can complete the duty that's been placed on me. But you have to know, whatever good comes to you, it comes to you because Allah wrote it for you. And if all of the people came together to try to do good for you, they wouldn't be able to do any good for you except for that which Allah wrote. He said, وَإِنَّ اجْتَمَعُوا عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَضُرُّكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَمْ يَضُرُّكَ إِلَّا بِشَيْءٍ قَدْ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكَ. And he said that if they will all come together, if they were all to come together to harm you, no harm can come to you except for that which Allah Azza wa Jal wrote for you. So what are you worried about? We have all of these things, the shaitan, the devil, he whispering to us. I don't know. Better not do that. I don't know. You better. We become scared. It goes beyond the worry. We become terrified. We become scared. We become depressed because we're thinking I may not be able to get such and such a thing, or this could happen to me. Wallahi, this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Shaykh Uthaymeen, he said, this hadith encourages the believer to do what? To rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu then said, Rufi'at al-aqlam. He said the pens have been raised. Khutbah as-suhuf. And the papers have been dried up. Now, it's been dried up. Shaykh Uthaymeen said it's upon the believer to understand this hadith and act accordingly. Nothing can harm you except that which Allah has written for you. And no good can come to you except that which Allah has decreed for you. And it's upon the believer to do what? Implement this hadith and act as if you know it. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, he said this hadith indeed is an encouragement for those who believe in Allah on the last day. Knowing that Allah Azza wa Jal has written already 50,000 years before creation all of the good that is going to come to you. And he already written down all of the difficulties, the calamities, the musibah, the hardship that's going to come to you. Now, so this is why it's upon the believer when the good comes to him, he praises Allah Azza wa Jalla. Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. And when the difficulties hit him, he praises Allah and he remains patient. He doesn't tear his clothes. He doesn't kick something. He doesn't curse. He doesn't break something. Ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala, he said, what we're talking about here is having a taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu. And the person who fears Allah, he knows Allah Azza wa Jalla. He said that when the difficulty comes, it's not seen on the face of the believer. He was smiling yesterday. When the difficulty hits him, he's still smiling. No one should be able to detect that he's having some type of problem in his life because he understands that which was written for him or her. It's understood. Now, even if it's the loss of life, the loss of a job, now, no matter what it is, you won't see it on the believer's face. They maintain this good decorum. You never hear any complaints from him. You know, there's some people, there's some brothers and sisters who, when you sit down with them, that's the first thing they do. Oh my this, oh my that, this and that. Oh, this happened. My foot, my head, my ear, my eye, my car, my job, this, that, ha. That's the way of the believer. We say, ya ukhti, ya akhi, oh sister and brother, don't you know that whatever is happening to you, Allah Azza wa Jalla has written it down way before you came into existence? They'll say, yes, a time, yes, of course. Why are you complaining like that? One time, one of the Salaf was passing by two men, and one was complaining to the other about his condition. And he stopped and he went over to him. He said to him, why are you complaining to the creation of Allah about the Creator? Why are you complaining to the creation about the Creator? What did he mean? Allah written down all of these things that are happening to you. Why are you complaining to him? He's like you, we can't do anything about it. You be sympathetic, oh, subhanAllah, oh, that's sad. That's it. Maybe you need money, he give you. But here's his money that he gives, it runs out. Allah Azza wa Jalla is al-Ghani. He's the most rich, he owns everything. That's who you turn to. But there has to be a tweaking of our understanding. There has to be. The Shaykh Rahimullah Ta'ala, he said this can only come about, meaning understanding and acting properly can only come about when the believer understands divine decree, the qadr of Allah. That means that we have to go learn. You see, because if the person doesn't have knowledge, they respond. This is not an offensive thing, like an ignorant person. He don't know. He doesn't know. When you start a job that you don't know about, you applied for this particular position. When you come in, they train you. Why? Because they don't want you to mess up the setup. When you don't have knowledge about a thing, you're going to mess up the setup. You just can't come in and start working in an area. You're going to break something. Now you may harm yourself. So without knowledge, what does it do? Knowledge protects you and it saves you from harm. So if you don't know how to respond to what's happening to you, then your response could be something that is detrimental for you. Wallahi, I've heard Muslims say, I don't know why Allah is doing this to me. How would it be that? You don't know why? From what we've been told, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that when a Muslim goes through any difficulty, he said even down to pricking his finger on the rose, on the thorn of a rose, Allah removes sin from him. Allah removes sin if he just pricks his finger on the rose. In another hadith narrated by Umar said that when the parents, listen, when the parents become frustrated with their children, Allah is removing sins from them. See, these things are given so that you'll be patient, tolerant, stepping on my feet first. Now, so the Muslim, the believer who has knowledge, he or she won't say, why is this happening to me? Oh, Allah's purifying me. They become patient. He's removing my sins. They become patient. That's the reality. All of the children of Adam are sinners, but the best of them are those who make tawbah. Sometimes we don't make tawbah. Sometimes we don't ask Allah to forgive us. So Allah in His infinite wisdom and mercy has put in other mechanisms to aid us in cleaning up ourselves. Allahu Akbar. Now I'm talking about from the minor sins, not the major. Shaykh al-Taymin, he said, when we see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Rufiyat Aqlam, that the pens are lifted and the ink on the paper has dried. He said, what we have to realize, there is no change or alteration in the words of Allah Azza wa Jalla. No change, no alteration. It is what it is. Someone may say, then how is it that I make dua and ask Allah to protect me from some harm and Allah protected me? And you're saying that that harm was decreed to hit me. The Shaykh of Sunnah, they said when the decree comes down upon a servant, some musibah, some difficulty, he makes dua and it hits it and sends it back. They say, how is this possible? The scholar said the fact that the servant made dua is from the decree of Allah. Allah had already decreed that the servant would make dua and deflect his harm from himself. Allahu Akbar. It's from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, so we should thank Allah Azza wa Jalla that He wrote this, that we make dua, and that dua protects me from the harm that was coming. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Some of the Salaf, they came to Anab ibn Qais, radiallahu ta'ala, and they said to him, how did you master Taqwa. How did you master this characteristic of fearing Allah Azza wa Jalla? Wallahi, it's difficult. They said, but how did you master it? He said, listen, I know that my provisions, well, I know about my provisions, and that is that no one can take it from me. First thing, why is it that I have such strong taqwa? He said, I know that Allah has decreed my provisions, and no one else can get my provisions but me. So why am I going to worry about provision? Allah has already secured that for me. My provisions is my provisions. His provisions is his provisions. It's written for him. Allah has already secured your provision. Stop worrying about your provision. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and go to work. No. It doesn't mean that. You have to strive. Because all of that has been written. He says, so I don't worry about it. My heart is at ease as it relates to my provisions. Allahu Akbar. He said, I also realize that none of my good deeds get performed unless I do it. He said, so I occupy myself doing good deeds. See, the prayer, your prayer doesn't get done for you unless you pray. Now, I remember some years ago, there was some sisters that came to the masjid. My family told me the story. And it was time for the salah, and a group of sisters sat in the back, they didn't get up. The sisters prayed with the jama'ah. When the salah was over, one of the sisters went to them and said, you can't pray? You know what that means, right? Could be on hate. Could be that time. She said, you can't pray? The girl said, no. Our parents, my mother, she prays for me. Wallahi, your deeds don't get done not unless you do them. You have to get up and pray. You have to give sadaqah. You have to go make hajj. You have to do it. When that's understood, he said, so I understand and I realize nothing gets done as it relates to the Amal Salih unless I get up and do it. He said, so I occupy myself doing good deeds. So I occupy myself making dhikr to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Now, I have to do it or it won't get done. I remember the students had mentioned about Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, how much he was consistent in making dhikr to Allah Azza wa Jalla. They said that when he used to sit in the halaqah and open the floor to questions, the students said that they could see the mouth of the sheikh moving. Alhamdulillah, subhanallah, la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. They said he was so consistent in making dhikr that when a student used to ask him a question, he used to have to take his gutra and put it in his mouth and hold it in his teeth so that he wouldn't say anything, so he'll be able to pay attention to what's being asked. Other than that, his mind was on Allah Azza wa Jalla. He occupies himself with doing good deeds because nobody else is going to do those deeds for him. After this, Ibn Qaisi said, I realized that Allah Azza wa Jalla is always watchful over me. He says, so I'm ashamed to commit sin under the watchfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I realize, Hakika, it's a reality. I realize, you see, why is this important? Because some of us don't realize. A lot of Muslims don't realize that Allah sees and hears everything. Because when you do, you'll be ashamed to say and do a thing under the watchfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, but we forget, even after we're in the masjid, we walk out, We're on our good behavior in the masjid, as if Allah only sees us here. When we leave the masjid, we start doing all kinds of stuff, saying all kinds of things. Why? Because we really don't realize that Allah hears and sees everything. There's nothing like it unto him, and he sees and hears everything. Is that a reality for us? Is that my reality? What do I say and do when I leave this blessed place? The place that Allah loves. What do I say and do when I leave here? Am I worried about Allah seeing me? Hearing me? Do I feel ashamed to do something? You know how you are ashamed to curse in front of your mother and your grandparents? Allah Azza wa Jal deserves more shame than that. And the sheikh, he comes, everybody on their best behavior. They sit in the best way. They dare not say anything that's going to make them look ignorant. What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Lastly, he said, and I realized that death is waiting for me. He said, so I make preparations for the journey. I realize that I'm going to die. I'm not going to stay here forever. So I make preparation for the journey. We need to let that soak in. We pack our bags and we want to go to Hawaii. Take all the things that we need. We travel down south, make sure the car's full of gas. You have some sandwiches in there, all the water and the juice and the candy, all the provisions and the clothing that you need that will secure your trip. What about your death? What about the journey that's unavoidable? What about that journey? Now, you see our point here? We're worried about all this stuff that's going on in our lives, but those things that we really should have concern and worry about will lie there last on the list. Everything else is up here. Need a car, I need a house, I need this, I gotta get. Death. Allah sees me. That's at the bottom of the list. The list gotta get flipped. These are the things that have priority in our lives. Look at what they said to him after this. They said, yeah, you're gonna pay. So where do you get your food from? I hear you doing all that stuff. How do you eat? SubhanAllah. He said, وَلِلَّهِ جَزَاءٌ سَمَوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ. He said, and to Allah belongs all of the treasures that's in the heavens and in the earth. What are you talking about? My name is Abdullah. Not worry about food. As long as I give Allah his rights, Allah is going to take care of me. All the treasures in the heavens and the earth belong to Allah. And then Allah mentions that the hypocrites, they don't understand. Oh Allah, please, let us not be from among the hypocrites. That's why you got to know your Lord. He's the owner of everything. The only thing we have to do is give Allah his haqq, his rights. And everything you need, food, drink, a wife, this, that, wallahi, you're going to have it. It just come to you. How many times have we heard the Mashaykh say, if you chase Allah and his messenger, the dunya, this worldly life, and it's all its riches will chase you. It'll chase you. But if you chase this worldly life, other than Allah and his messenger, everything's going to run away from you. I don't have this. I don't have that. How come I don't have? And I really need it. You find that person sitting and always complaining about his condition. Huh? Wallahi, we have to give Allah his rights and stop worrying about the dunya, what I haven't got or taken of this dunya. Because Allah wrote it for you already. We ask that Allah to make us from among those who are patient. And alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Time is short. But there was one of the rulers, the Muslim rulers in Spain. His name was Mansour. And then Mansour, what he used to do is once a week, he would allow the people to come and request from him whatever it is they need in the kingdom, in Spain, Andalus. So the people used to come and say, oh, I need this, oh, I need that. Can you give me this? My tribe doesn't have that. And he would deal with them accordingly. But he was what, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you're going to come a time where you're going to see that some of the rulers, they're righteous, and other affairs, they're wretched. He was from those people. So this woman came to him and said, Mansour, you have my son locked up in your prison. He's been there for years. Can you free him? Mansour, he said, I have your son? I forgot. Matter of fact, I'm going to have him executed. So he asked for the paper because he has the right of the decree. So he said, Yusuf, execute him. But he wrote down, Yutlaq, free him. He said, execute, but he wrote down to free him. Ibn Hazm, his father, was the deputy to al-Mansur. He was the one to carry out the orders of the Amir. So he gave him the paper, and he went, and he grabbed the boy, and he looked at the paper, and it said, Yutlaq, or free him. So they began to get him together. And so he came back, al-Mansur, and he said, you carried out my orders? He said, yeah, you told us to free him. So we get him prepared to be free to go. He said, what are you talking about? I said, to execute him. He said, give me the paper. He took the paper back and he wrote down, after he said, execute him. You hear me? Execute him. He said, okay, just give us the order. He wrote down the order. Again, he wrote down, free him. He handed it to him. He went back. He said, tell him to free him. He went back, and then Sword did it again for the third time. The deputy came back. He said, you wrote down the same thing. You told us to free him. He said, so what should we do? And then Sword, he said, Wallahi, I have no control over the one whom I'm trying to execute, and Allah wants him free. So I got no control. If Allah wants him free, then free him. What we see from this is that there's something that that mother and that son was doing. They were keeping their duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah Azza wa Jal he came in between the king's speech and his hand. Said the king, he said, وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْأَمْرِ وَقَلْبِهِ. He said, know indeed that Allah will come in between a man and his heart. No matter what his statement was, couldn't control his hand. And what controls the hand? Your heart. Allah Azza wa Jal came in between that, and this man was free. SubhanAllah. Why? Because they're keeping the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with this, he will see all of the worry and stress is unnecessary. The only thing we have to do is maintain the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will aid us. He will help us. Wallahi, He will free us from any difficulty. Even if it looks like the deck is stacked against you. Allah will aid you out of ways that you could have not even imagined. So it's upon us to have tawakkul on Allah, have reliance, real, true reliance upon Allah. And He'll help us. Stop worrying. We ask that Allah to aid us and strengthen us, and that He raises in our heart this reliance upon Him, and this trusting upon Him, now and turning only to Him. And we ask that Allah to aid us in keeping His rights, because in doing that, Allah will remember us. And we ask that Allah will make us from among those that He remember. And subhanahu wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله